Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Guardian, watching the stars through the massive view screen. It was a quiet day in Earth's Space Defense Headquarters. The 12 human colonies were peaceful, trade with alien species was going well, and no major threats appeared on any scanner. Then the alarm started screaming. "Admiral, we have an unknown contact approaching the Sol system," called out Lieutenant Dan Brooks from his sensor station. His voice carried worry. "The energy readings don't match anything in our database." Lisa walked quickly to the sensor console. The readings made no sense. The object was huge, moving at incredible speed, and giving off energy patterns that seemed impossible. "How big is it?" 2.5 kilometers, ma'am. But here's the strange part. The hull signature matches the UES horizon. Lisa's blood went cold. The horizon had been lost 53 years ago during humanity's first deep space exploration mission. She was just a child when Captain Jake Morrison and his crew of 200 disappeared beyond the edge of known space. "Everyone assumed they were dead. That's impossible," she whispered. "The horizon was only 800 meters long." "Yes, ma'am, but the computer confirms it. Same hull material, same basic design, just bigger, much bigger." As the massive ship approached, more details became clear. The familiar shape of the horizon was there, but transformed. Strange energy patterns flowed across its hull like living light. New sections had been added that defied understanding. The ship looked like it had been rebuilt by someone who understood physics better than humanity ever could. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Kate Riley. "Put it through." The view screen flickered, and a familiar face appeared. Captain Jake Morrison looked exactly the same as he had 53 years ago. Not a day older. His uniform was different, though, made from materials that seemed to shift and change color as he moved. "Earth Command. This is Captain Morrison of the UES Horizon requesting permission to dock at Luna Station." Lisa stared at the screen.
"Jake, is that really you?"
Morrison smiled. "Hello, Lisa. I know this must be confusing. We have a lot to explain. Where have you been for 53 years? And how is your ship so different? Time moves strangely where we've been. For us, it's been much longer than 53 years, but also somehow shorter. We've learned things about the universe that will change everything for humanity." Lisa looked at her crew. They were all staring at the screen with shock. "Permission granted to dock. But Jake, I'm sending a full security team to meet you." "I understand. But Lisa, you should know. We're not exactly the same people who left Earth all those years ago. We've been changed, improved, and we're not alone." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Dr. Amy Walsh arrived at Luna Station 3 hours later with her xenobiology team. She had studied every known alien species humanity had encountered. The diplomatic Zentari traders with their forearms and crystal-like skin. The aggressive Corvan Empire soldiers with their thick armor and weapons that shot pure energy. The strange void seekers who never showed their faces and only spoke in complex math, equations, but nothing had prepared her for what she saw when the horizon docked. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its hull seemed to be made of materials that didn't exist when it left Earth. Energy flowed through channels carved into the metal, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. The docking bay extended from the ship like it was growing, forming a perfect seal with the station. Captain Morrison stepped out first, followed by his crew. Amy counted at least 50 people, but she knew more were still inside. They all looked human, but something was different. They moved with perfect coordination, like they could read each other's minds. Their eyes seemed brighter, more aware. When they spoke to each other, they sometimes used sounds that weren't quite words. "Dr. Walsh," Morrison said, approaching her team. "Thank you for coming. I know this is overwhelming." Amy studied his face. He looked exactly like the photos from 53 years ago, but his eyes held knowledge that seemed ancient. "Captain Morrison, we need to understand what happened to you. Where have you been? How is this possible?" "We went further than anyone thought possible. Beyond the edge of the galaxy, to a place where the rules of physics are different. We found something there, or rather, it found us." Morrison led them into the ship and Amy gasped. The corridors were wrong. They seemed to stretch forever, even though the ship had clear limits from the outside. Gravity flowed in directions that made no sense. The wall showed images of stars and planets that moved like they were alive. "We call them the architects," Morrison explained as they walked. "They built something out there called the Nexus. It's a testing ground for younger species like us. They wanted to see if humanity was ready for advanced technology. Ready for what? Amy asked. Morrison stopped walking and turned to face her. His expression became serious. Ready to survive what's coming. They entered a vast room that couldn't possibly fit inside the ship as Amy had seen it from outside. Hundreds of crew members worked at stations that responded to their thoughts instead of their hands. Displays showed star maps with detail that Earth's best computers couldn't match. The universe is more dangerous than we knew, Morrison continued. There are powers out there that destroy young civilizations before they can become threats. They've done it dozens of times before, and they're coming for us. Chief Engineer Ben Cooper joined them, nodding to Amy's team. He looked the same age as when he left Earth, but his hands moved over alien controls like he had used them for decades. The architects gave us the tools to defend ourselves, but only after we proved we deserved them. What kind of proof? Amy asked. We had to show that we could use advanced technology responsibly, that we wouldn't use it to conquer and destroy others. The tests were hard. We spent decades in the Nexus, learning, growing, becoming more than we were. Morrison touched a panel and the room's walls became transparent. Outside space looked different. Stars seemed closer, brighter. We can see things now that human eyes were never meant to see. We can travel distances that should take years and hours. We can build things that turn basic materials into anything we need. But there's a price, Ben added. The technology only works if we use it for defense and exploration. If we try to use it for conquest or aggression, it simply stops working. Amy looked around at the impossible room filled with enhanced humans using technology beyond understanding. Why did you come back? Morrison's expression became grim. Because the threat is coming whether we're ready or not. In about 18 months, a massive military force will arrive to destroy every human colony and Earth itself. They've done this 47 times before to other species. But we're not the same humans who left, Ben said with a smile. And we're not going to fight alone. Amy felt a chill run down her spine. Everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy was wrong. But looking at Morrison and his transformed crew, she began to feel something else besides fear. Hope. Captain Morrison sat in the Earth Command briefing room, facing a table full of admirals and scientists. 3 days had passed since the Horizon returned and everyone wanted answers. Admiral Carter led the meeting while Dr. Walsh took notes on everything Morrison said. Tell us exactly what happened after you left our solar system, Admiral Carter said. Morrison leaned forward. We followed our mission plan for the first 6 months. We mapped 17 star systems and found 3 planets that could support human life. Everything was normal until we reached the edge of what our sensors could detect. Dr. Rachel Stone, the Horizon's physicist, joined the briefing by video link from the ship. She looked the same age as when she left Earth, but her eyes held knowledge that seemed impossible for one person to carry. We detected what appeared to be a standard jump point, she explained. Our readings said it led to another star system about 50 light years away. But when we jumped through it, we found ourselves somewhere completely different. Different how? Asked Dr. Walsh. Morrison stood and activated a holographic display. The image showed a region of space unlike anything the Earth scientists had ever seen. Stars burned with cold light instead of heat. Planets moved in patterns that defied the laws of gravity. Space itself seemed to twist and bend like fabric in the wind. Time worked differently there, Morrison continued. Sometimes minutes felt like hours. Other times days passed in what seemed like seconds. Our instruments couldn't make sense of the readings. Chief Engineer Ben Cooper's voice came through the speakers from the Horizon. The laws of physics we learned on Earth simply didn't apply. Matter behaved in ways our science said was impossible. Energy flowed backward through time. We had to learn everything again from the beginning. Navigator Alex Park appeared on another screen. His hair was still brown, his face still young. But when he spoke about navigation, he used terms that Earth's best scientists couldn't understand. On our 3rd day in that space, we detected a massive structure. It was bigger than most moons, but it wasn't natural. Someone had built it. The holographic display changed to show an enormous construction floating in the strange space. It looked like a city and a machine at the same time. Towers that stretched for miles connected to rings that spun slowly around a central core. Energy flowed between the sections in patterns that created a hypnotic dance of light. We called it the Nexus, Morrison said. As we approached, it began communicating with us. Not with radio or any technology we understood. It spoke directly to our minds. Communications Officer Kate Miller joined the conversation from her station on the horizon. The communication wasn't words or images. It was pure understanding. We suddenly knew things we had never learned. We understood that the Nexus was built by a species called the Architects. Who were these Architects? Admiral Carter asked. They were like us once, Morrison replied. A young species that developed space travel and began exploring the galaxy. But they grew beyond physical existence millions of years ago. They became something more, beings of pure thought and energy. Dr. Stone manipulated the holographic display to show the inside of the Nexus. Vast, chambers filled with impossible geometry stretched in all directions. The Architects built the Nexus as a testing ground. They wanted to help younger species like us develop the wisdom to handle advanced technology safely. What kind of tests? Dr. Walsh asked. Ben Cooper's voice became serious. Every test was designed to push us beyond our limits. Not just our technology, but our ability to work together, to make moral choices, to think beyond our own survival. The display showed scenes from inside the Nexus. Human crew members working on problems that seemed to involve rebuilding entire solar systems. Groups of people making decisions that affected the lives of billions of simulated beings. Individuals learning to perceive reality in ways that human brains were never designed to handle. One test required us to manage the resources of a dying civilization, Morrison explained. We had the power to save them, but only by making choices that would affect thousands of other species. We had to learn to think on a galactic scale. Navigator Park continued the story. Another test challenged us to communicate with beings whose thoughts moved at completely different speeds than ours. Some thought so fast that our entire conversation happened in microseconds. Others thought so slowly that a single idea took days to complete. The hardest test was the mirror, Kate Miller said quietly. We were shown what humanity might become if we gained advanced technology without wisdom. We saw ourselves conquering other species, destroying planets for resources, becoming exactly the kind of threat the galaxy needs to eliminate. The room fell silent. The implications were clear. Humanity was being judged, and the consequences of failure were extinction. How long did these tests take? Admiral Carter asked. Morrison smiled grimly. That's where time becomes complicated. For us, we spent nearly 30 years inside the Nexus. We lived through decades of challenges, learning, and growth. But in normal space-time, only 18 months passed. Dr. Stone added, the Nexus exists partially outside normal space-time. While we were learning and being tested, the galaxy continued on its normal timeline. To everyone else, we had simply disappeared. What did you learn? Dr. Walsh asked. Ben Cooper answered first. We learned to see matter and energy as the same thing. We can now manipulate the basic building blocks of reality to create anything we need. Our ship's manufacturing systems can turn simple elements into complex technology in minutes. Alex Park's image showed him manipulating a control panel that responded to his thoughts. We learned to perceive 11 dimensions instead of just 3. This allows us to travel through space by taking shortcuts through higher dimensions. We can cross the galaxy in hours instead of years. Kate Miller demonstrated by having a conversation with someone on Earth using only her thoughts. Her words appeared on the briefing room screens instantly, with no communication delay. We learned to connect our minds across any distance. Thought travels faster than light when you understand how consciousness really works. But the most important thing we learned, Morrison said, was about the threat facing all young civilizations. The Architects showed us records of 47 species that reached our level of development and were then destroyed. The holographic display changed to show a map of the galaxy, with red markers scattered throughout. Each marker represented a dead civilization. Dr. Stone's voice became urgent. There's a coalition of older species called the Dominion. They systematically eliminate any civilization that develops faster than light travel and begins expanding into space. Their logic is simple, Morrison explained. Every species that develops space travel will eventually compete for resources and territory. So they destroy young civilizations while they're still weak, before they can become threats. Admiral Carter leaned forward. Are you saying they're coming for us? Morrison nodded grimly. They're already here. The Corvan Empire that we've been negotiating with? They're the military arm of the Dominion. The Zentari traders who seem so friendly, they're gathering intelligence about our colonies and technology. Even the mysterious Void Seekers are mapping our space infrastructure. The room erupted in shocked voices, but Morrison continued speaking over the noise. According to the intelligence we gathered on our way back to Earth, the Dominion has already decided. The cleansing fleet will arrive in approximately 18 months to eliminate every human presence in the galaxy. How many ships? Admiral Carter asked. Nearly 1,000, Morrison replied. Each one more advanced than anything in our current fleet. Dr. Walsh looked around the room at the panicked faces of Earth's leadership. How can we possibly fight against odds like that? Morrison smiled, and for the first time since the briefing began, he looked confident. Because we're not the same humans who left Earth 53 years ago, and we're not going to fight alone. The war room beneath Earth Command buzzed with activity. Admiral Carter stood before a massive holographic display showing every human colony and known alien position in local space. Red markers indicated Dominion forces, and there were far more than anyone had expected. Intelligence Officer Sam Rogers pointed to clusters of red dots scattered throughout human territory. These aren't trading posts or diplomatic stations. Every single Corvin facility is actually a military staging area. Look at the power readings we're getting from the Horizon's new sensors. The display zoomed in on a Corvin trade station near the colony of New Boston. Instead of the simple commercial facility humans thought it was, the station bristled with weapons and housed over 50 warships hidden inside what appeared to be storage bays. They've been preparing for this attack for decades, Sam continued. Every time we opened trade relations or signed a peace treaty, we were actually helping them position forces for our destruction. Dr. Walsh studied the data with growing horror. The Zentari diplomatic missions? All fake, Sam replied. Every cultural exchange, every trade negotiation, every scientific cooperation project was designed to gather information about our technology and colony defenses. Captain Morrison entered the war room with several of his enhanced crew members. Chief Engineer Ben Cooper carried a device that looked like a simple metal cube, but it hummed with energy that made the air around it shimmer. We finished analyzing the intelligence we gathered on our approach to Earth, Morrison announced. The situation is worse than we first thought, but we also found something the Dominion doesn't know about. He activated the cube, and the holographic display changed completely. New markers appeared throughout the galaxy, green dots hidden in nebulae, asteroid fields, and dead star systems. These are survivor colonies, Morrison explained, species that the Dominion thought they had completely destroyed, but some managed to escape and hide. Admiral Carter stared at the display. How many? Dr. Rachel Stone answered from her position at a control panel that seemed to be made of living light. 42 surviving civilizations. Most are small groups of refugees, but some have rebuilt significant populations and technology bases. They've been waiting for someone to organize them, added Navigator Alex Park. The Dominion is powerful, but they've made enemies throughout the galaxy. Many of these survivors have been preparing for revenge for centuries. Ben Cooper placed the cube on the central table, and it projected detailed schematics into the air above them. The architect technology we brought back can do more than just upgrade our ships and weapons. It can enhance any existing technology, regardless of which species created it. The schematics showed human ships transformed with impossible improvements, weapons that could tear holes in space itself, shields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, engines that moved ships by folding space around them instead of pushing through it. But there's something else, Morrison said, his expression becoming serious. Dr. Walsh, we need to show you what happened to us on a biological level. Amy Walsh followed Morrison and his crew to the Horizon's medical bay. The room looked like a combination of hospital and alien laboratory. Strange devices scanned the air continuously, and medical displays showed readouts that used symbols instead of numbers. The Nexus didn't just teach us to use advanced technology, Morrison explained. It changed us on a genetic level. Watch this. He placed his hand on a control panel and the entire medical bay responded to his thoughts. Machines activated, displays changed, and the room's lighting shifted to match his mood. Every human has dormant genetic sequences, Dr. Stone said as she materialized beside them. Amy blinked. Stone had been on the other side of the ship just seconds ago. The architect testing process activated those sequences in us. We can now interface directly with any technology based on architect designs. Amy ran her medical scanner over Morrison, and the readings made no sense. His brain activity was 3 times higher than normal humans, but he showed no signs of strain. His reflexes tested at superhuman levels, yet his muscles were the same size as before. The changes aren't just physical. Communications Officer Kate Miller added as she joined the group. We can sense things that normal humans can't. Probability patterns, quantum fluctuations, the emotional states of people around us. More importantly, Morrison said, we can trigger the same changes in other humans, but it has to be voluntary and it takes time. The process can't be rushed without risking permanent damage. Amy looked around at the enhanced crew members. How many people can you change before the Dominion arrives? Ben Cooper answered from across the room, though Amy was sure he hadn't been there a moment before. With our current resources, maybe 1,000 people. But that's not our real strategy. Morrison led them back to the war room, where Admiral Carter was studying tactical reports with growing concern. The Dominion fleet will have us outnumbered almost 1,000 to 1, Carter said as they entered. Even with your advanced technology, how can we possibly win? We don't fight their kind of war, Morrison replied. Traditional space battles are what they expect. Instead, we use the architect technology to change the rules entirely. The holographic display shifted to show Morrison's plan. Instead of meeting the Dominion fleet in open battle, the human colonies would disappear entirely from normal space-time. Using the same technology that allowed the horizon to exist in multiple dimensions, entire planets could be shifted into parallel space where the Dominion couldn't reach them. Meanwhile, Sam Rogers added, we strike at Dominion installations throughout the galaxy using instant transportation. We can appear anywhere, destroy military targets, and vanish before they can respond. Dr. Stone manipulated the display to show the technical details. The architect technology allows us to exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The Dominion's weapons and sensors are limited to normal 3-dimensional space. To them, we'll be invisible until we choose to attack. But the real advantage, Alex Park said, is our new allies. The display changed again to show the hidden survivor colonies. Every species the Dominion tried to destroy has been waiting for this chance. The Ethians who lost their homeworld have been building weapons for 60 years. The crystalline Shirai exist as energy beings now and can infiltrate any Dominion computer system. The Melody can manipulate gravity to crush ships from the inside. Admiral Carter studied the plan with amazement and terror. You're talking about starting a galactic war. Morrison shook his head. The war already started when the Dominion decided to exterminate us. We're just choosing to fight back instead of dying quietly. Kate Miller stepped forward. I've been in contact with survivor leaders throughout the galaxy. They're ready to coordinate their attacks with ours. When the Dominion fleet arrives at Earth, they'll find their supply lines cut, their bases under attack, and their communications disrupted. But Admiral, Morrison continued, you need to understand something important. Once we start this war, there's no going back. We'll either win completely, or humanity will be hunted to extinction. Carter looked around the room at her officers and the enhanced crew of the Horizon. The plan was insane, but it was also their only hope. How long do we have to prepare? She asked. Ben Cooper consulted a device that seemed to predict future events. 15 months and 3 days until the Dominion fleet arrives. But we can be ready in 12 months if we start immediately. Admiral Carter took a deep breath and made the decision that would determine humanity's fate. Then we start now. Project Renaissance began immediately. The Horizon became a flying factory, traveling to each human colony to install technology that shouldn't exist. Admiral Carter watched from the Guardian's bridge as impossible changes transformed humanity's defenses. At New Boston Colony, Chief Engineer Ben Cooper supervised the installation of quantum shield generators. The devices looked like simple metal towers, but they created protective barriers that existed in multiple dimensions. Any weapon fired at the colony would pass harmlessly through normal space while the colony remained, safely hidden in parallel dimensions. It's like magic, whispered Lieutenant Brooks as he watched the installation process. The towers seemed to build themselves, growing from basic materials into complex structures in minutes. It's not magic, Dr. Rachel Stone replied over the communication link from the Horizon. It's just science that we didn't understand before. The architects learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level. We're essentially convincing atoms to become whatever we need them to be. On Mars Colony, Navigator Alex Park worked with local engineers to upgrade their transportation systems. The old shuttle routes that took days to travel between planets were replaced with instant portals. Colonists could step through a doorway on Mars and emerge on Europa a second later. "How is this safe?" asked Mars Colony Director Linda Foster as she watched the first test portal activation. Alex smiled and stepped through the portal himself, vanishing from Mars and appearing on Europa. His voice came through clearly on both ends. "The portal doesn't move you through space. It moves space around you. You never actually travel anywhere. The universe just rearranges itself so that you're in a different location." The weapons upgrades were even more dramatic. Human ships that once fired simple energy beams now wielded weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. The manufacturing systems installed on each colony could turn ordinary asteroids into fleets of advanced warships in hours. Dr. Amy Walsh worked with Communications Officer Kate Miller to establish the Enhanced Communication Network. Instead of radio signals that took minutes or hours to cross space, the new system allowed instant thought-based communication across any distance. "I can sense the emotional state of every human in the colonies," Kate explained as they tested the system. "Fear, hope, determination. It all flows through the quantum consciousness network we've created." The most important part of the project was training volunteers to interface with the architect technology. Captain Morrison personally oversaw this process, knowing that enhanced humans would be essential for operating the new systems. "Remember," he told each group of volunteers, "the enhancement process will change how you think and perceive reality. You'll still be human, but you'll be more than you were before." The volunteers included soldiers, engineers, doctors, and ordinary colonists. Each person who underwent the enhancement process emerged with capabilities that amazed their unchanged friends and family. Enhanced reflexes, expanded awareness, and the ability to control advanced technology with their thoughts. Sarah Kim, a shuttle pilot from Europa, was among the first volunteers. After the enhancement process, she could pilot ships through 11-dimensional space as easily as driving a ground car. "It's like I can see the roads between stars," she explained to her worried parents. "I know exactly where to go and how to get there safely." Meanwhile, Intelligence Officer Sam Rogers coordinated with the hidden survivor colonies throughout the galaxy. The Ethian refugees shared plans for weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The energy-based Shirai taught humans how to infiltrate Dominion computer systems without being detected. "The Dominion has made enemies of everyone," reported Ethian leader Zeph Morin during a secret meeting. "They destroyed our homeworld because we developed better engines than theirs. They consider any technological advancement by younger species to be a threat." The crystalline Shirai, who communicated through patterns of light, revealed the locations of hidden Dominion weapons factories. "They build their tools of destruction in empty star systems," the Shirai entity Bright Harmony explained. "They believe no one can find them there." As the months passed, the 12 human colonies transformed beyond recognition. Planets that once struggled to support small populations became centers of advanced technology and manufacturing. The colonists learned to work with systems that responded to thought and intention rather than manual control. But the most dramatic change was in the people themselves. As more humans underwent the enhancement process, they began to function as a connected network rather than isolated individuals. They could share knowledge instantly, coordinate complex tasks without speaking, and solve problems that would have taken normal humans years to understand. "We're becoming something new," Morrison told Admiral Carter during one of their regular briefings. "Not just enhanced humans, but a collective intelligence that maintains individual personality and choice." Carter watched the progress reports with amazement and concern. "Are we still human?" Dr. Stone answered from her laboratory on the horizon. "We're what humans can become when we're not limited by the constraints we thought were permanent. Every human has always had the potential for these abilities. The architect technology just helps us access them. The hidden preparations weren't limited to defensive measures. Strike teams of enhanced humans trained with weapons and tactics that would let them attack Dominion forces anywhere in the galaxy. Using portal technology, they could appear inside enemy ships, disable their systems, and vanish before the crew could respond. The Dominion expects traditional warfare, explained Strike Team leader Mike Chen as he demonstrated the new tactics. They prepare for fleets meeting in open space and shooting at each other until one side is destroyed. They don't know how to fight enemies who can attack from 11 dimensions at once. 3 months before the expected arrival of the Dominion fleet, the preparations reached their final stage. Every human colony had been equipped with quantum shields and dimensional displacement systems. The population had been trained to operate the new technology. Strike teams were ready to attack Dominion installations throughout the galaxy, but the most important development was the discovery that the enhancement process was accelerating. Humans who spent time around enhanced individuals began developing the abilities naturally, without undergoing the formal process. "It's spreading like a beneficial virus," Dr. Walsh reported. "The quantum consciousness field created by enhanced humans is triggering the dormant genetic sequences in everyone around them." Kate Miller added her observations from the communication network. "I can sense enhanced abilities awakening in thousands of people across all the colonies. We're not just creating a few hundred enhanced individuals. We're triggering an evolutionary leap for the entire human species." As the final month of preparation began, Admiral Carter received a message that changed everything. Sam Rogers burst into her office with intelligence that made her blood run cold. "The Dominion fleet is arriving early," he announced. "They're not waiting for their scheduled time. Long-range sensors show nearly 1,000 ships approaching the edge of our solar system." Carter activated the emergency communication system, sending alerts to every human colony and ship. "How long do we have?" Morrison's voice came through the quantum communication network, calm despite the crisis. 6 days until they reach Earth. "But Admiral, we're ready for them." Carter looked out at the stars and made a silent prayer for humanity's survival. In 6 days, they would discover whether their impossible preparations were enough to save the human race from extinction. The Dominion cleansing fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system exactly as predicted. 847 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. Their commander, War Prime Thax of the Corvan Empire, expected to find a primitive species hiding behind simple defenses. Instead, he found empty space. "Where are the human colonies?" demanded Thax from the bridge of his flagship, the Void Render. His scanners showed the correct locations: Mars, Europa, the asteroid mining stations, but detected no life signs, no energy readings, no evidence that anyone lived there. "Perhaps they fled when they detected our approach," suggested his tactical officer. Thax's forearms gestured in annoyance. In 1,000 years of eliminating young civilizations, none had ever successfully evacuated entire colonies. "Send scout ships to investigate each location. Find where they're hiding." What Thax didn't know was that Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the Guardian, watching his fleet through sensors that existed in 11 dimensions. The human colonies hadn't fled. They had shifted into parallel space-time, remaining in the same locations but invisible to normal 3-dimensional sensors. "All ships report ready," announced Communications Officer Kate Miller. Her voice reached every enhanced human in the solar system instantly, through the quantum consciousness network. Captain Morrison's voice joined the communication from the horizon, which hung in space just a few kilometers from the Dominion flagship. "Initiate Operation Starfall." The battle that followed broke every rule of space warfare that had existed for millions of years. Strike teams led by Mike Chen materialized inside Dominion ships without warning. Using personal portal generators, the enhanced humans appeared directly on enemy bridges, disabled the command crews with weapons that attacked nervous systems instead of physical bodies, and vanished before security forces could respond. Navigator Alex Park coordinated the dimensional attacks from his position aboard the Guardian. Using his enhanced perception of 11-dimensional space, he could see every Dominion ship as if they were transparent. "Targeting the command ship's main reactor," he reported. "Strike Team 7, portal opening in 3 seconds." The enhanced humans moved through space like ghosts. They attacked from directions that didn't exist in normal physics, struck targets that should have been impossible to reach, and disappeared into dimensions that Dominion sensors couldn't detect. But the real surprise came when the hidden allies revealed themselves. Ethian ships that had been disguised as asteroids suddenly powered up their weapons and began destroying Dominion supply vessels. The crystalline Sharai, existing as pure energy beings, infiltrated Dominion computer systems and turned the fleet's own weapons against each other. War Prime Thax watched in horror as his carefully planned assault became chaos. "How are they doing this?" "Our intelligence said humans had primitive technology," His question was answered when the horizon suddenly appeared directly in front of his flagship. The transformed Earthship was larger than his own vessel and radiated energy patterns that made his instruments scream warnings. Dominion Fleet. This is Captain Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon, came the transmission. You came here to destroy humanity. Instead, you're going to learn why that was a mistake. The Horizon's weapons fired, but they didn't shoot energy or projectiles. Instead, they fired concentrated gravity waves that crushed 3 Dominion cruisers like empty cans. Space itself seemed to ripple and bend around the impossible weapons. Thax tried to order his fleet to retreat, but found that his ships couldn't move. Dr. Rachel Stone had used architect technology to create gravity fields that held the Dominion vessels in place like insects in amber. You cannot hold us forever. Thax broadcast on all frequencies. The Dominion has thousands of ships throughout the galaxy. Even if you defeat this fleet, more will come. Morrison's reply came with quiet confidence. We know. That's why we're not just fighting here. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out at every major Dominion base and shipyard. Enhanced humans armed with architect technology appeared without warning, striking at the heart of the vast military machine that had terrorized younger species for 1,000 years. On the Dominion homeworld of Korvax Prime, Strike Team leader Sarah Kim led a group of volunteers through portals that opened directly in the government chambers. But instead of attacking, they activated devices that projected holographic evidence of the Dominion's crimes throughout the planet's communication networks. The Corvan civilian population watched in shock as records of 47 destroyed civilizations played on every screen. They saw their government's systematic campaign of genocide, the lies told to justify the murders, and the resources stolen from dead worlds. Your leaders told you that younger species were threats to galactic peace, Sarah broadcast in perfect Corvan language, her enhanced mind having learned their entire linguistic database in seconds. The truth is that they were threats only to Dominion power and control. Similar operations occurred on dozens of Dominion worlds. The Ethian survivors revealed themselves after 60 years of hiding, showing their former enemies what they had become. The Shirai demonstrated that death itself couldn't stop the pursuit of justice. Species thought extinct emerged from hidden colonies throughout the galaxy, but the most shocking moment came when Navigator Park used the Horizon's enhanced capabilities to transport War Prime Thakix and his command staff directly into the Nexus itself. Standing in the vast chambers where the architects had tested humanity, the Dominion leaders experienced the same trials that had transformed Morrison's crew. They were forced to confront simulated civilizations facing extinction and make the choice between saving them or pursuing personal gain. For the first time in their lives, the Dominion commanders experienced empathy. Thax found himself making decisions to save species he had never met, protecting worlds he would never visit, choosing the welfare of others over his own advancement. The experience lasted subjective years but took only hours in normal time. When they returned to normal space, Thax was changed. His forearms shook as he broadcast to his remaining fleet. All ships cease fire immediately. Stand down all weapons, we have made a terrible mistake. The war that the Dominion expected to last days ended in hours, not because one side destroyed the other, but because the Dominion leadership finally understood what they had been doing. Admiral Carter stood in the restored war room as reports came in from across the galaxy. Dominion fleets were surrendering. Civilian populations were demanding answers from their governments. The 1,000-year campaign of genocide was ending not in victory or defeat, but in transformation. What happens now? She asked Morrison. Now we help them become better than they were, Morrison replied. The same way the architects helped us. Dr. Walsh reviewed the medical data from enhanced humans throughout the colonies. The genetic changes are accelerating. Every human child born in the last 6 months shows the enhanced sequences. We're not just evolving, we're becoming a new kind of life form. Communications Officer Kate Miller monitored the galaxy-wide network of thoughts and emotions that enhanced humans had created. I can sense the Dominion population's awakening to empathy and cooperation. The transformation isn't limited to humans anymore. 6 months later, Admiral Carter stood aboard the newly constructed diplomatic station orbiting Earth. Representatives from dozens of species worked together on projects that would have been Impossible under Dominion rule. Former War Prime Thax, now calling himself simply Thakex, helped design new exploration ships that would seek out undiscovered civilizations not to destroy them, but to help them develop safely. The crystalline Shirai had taken physical form again, using architect technology to create new bodies of living light. They worked with human scientists to unlock the secrets of consciousness itself. The Ethian survivors had established new colonies and were teaching other species how to terraform dead worlds into gardens. But the most important change was in humanity itself. Enhanced humans now served as bridges between species, using their expanded consciousness to translate not just languages, but entire ways of thinking. Dr. Stone established the Galactic Research Cooperative, where every species contributed their unique knowledge to solve problems that affected all life in the galaxy. Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, led the newly formed Terran exploration fleet on missions to find other architect sites throughout the galaxy. Each discovery revealed more about the ancient species' ultimate purpose. The architects left these testing sites for a reason, Morrison explained to Carter during their final meeting. They were preparing younger species for something much larger than galactic politics. What kind of something? Carter asked. Morrison looked out at the stars with eyes that could perceive 11 dimensions. Something is coming from beyond our galaxy. Something that makes the Dominion's fears seem small. The architects have been preparing us to face challenges that threaten not just our world or our galaxy, but all life everywhere. As the transformed Horizon prepared for its next mission to the galactic core, humans throughout the colonies felt a new sense of purpose. They were no longer just survivors fighting for their existence. They had